Welcome to Australia, welcome to Australian Book Travels, and welcome to this week's book recommendations. 3, again, all different genres. I hope at least one of them interests you, if not all. They all interest me, of course, usually. Usually I show you the ones that really interest me, and even if they're not of my particular passion, but I like to recommend good books, no matter the genre. Okay, first of all, I hope you've all had a lovely weekend. It has been very busy for us here, very busy trying to work on locations and events to video for you. I hope you enjoy them in the coming weeks, but I hope you've had a lovely weekend. Enjoyable, whether it's been reading or eating or going out or staying home, and no matter the weather. I never worry about the weather when I'm doing things, because I think if I'm really enjoying what I'm doing, what does it matter, the weather? So long as the weather's not impacting what you're doing, if you're playing sport and it's raining or snowing, but overall, the weather really never impacts my mood. Or what I'm doing. I love what I do, and whether that be working with the animals or working on the property or videoing for you. Anyway, let's get into it. I won't try not to take too long today. She jests. Anyway, spectacles on, all systems go. Andre Ackerman, the gentleman from Peru. I did speak to in the last video, I think in after Lancefield, or at the end of the Lancefield video, I bought this from the Red Door Bookshop, and the title, the cover, and the fact that it's a hardcover interested me greatly. I have never read Andre Ackerman. I am interested to do so after reading this. Now, this is, I think when I spoke to you last, I was 50 pages or thereabouts from the end of finishing this. And up until that point, I had thoroughly enjoyed it. It was magical and mystical and beautiful. There was a really gentle mystery about it. Then at around about 50 pages or 20 pages from the end, I was a little shocked. Now, bear with me as I explain this. There was a bit of... Look, I'm not a prude at all by any means, but when I'm reading, and I'm reading something magical or something beautiful, or that I consider magical or beautiful, I'm not that keen on there being sort of too much sexuality or too much sexual contact. That's really poorly explained, but what it is, overall, this is, it's a few things, but at the very core, it's a love story. And although really for the most part you wouldn't know it, it's only at the end that you really get to realise that this is a love story. And there is a few pages that shocked me, not that it was explicit or anything like that, but I didn't understand why it was necessary for the rest of the story, because it could have been explained in a different way. Having said that, I understand that not all stories can be or should be just nicey-nicey, if that makes sense. I understand that there is going to be some things in life and in novels that we don't... It's not overly ugly or bad, but we just don't necessarily appreciate it. There were a few pages in here where I thought, I'm not sure that was necessary, but it redeemed itself with the story at the end, with the finishing. Overall, I love this. It reminded me a little of Sliding Doors, with that parallel universe or parallel lives or other lives. A little bit about, it's a little bit too on reincarnation, I guess. That with a little bit of the sliding doors concept. I thought it was magical. It really, I was really happy to read it, and it gave me something to think about, apart from those few pages where I thought, oh, no, that's not necessary. But overall, I thought it was beautiful. It was a beautiful story, and I do recommend it. It's 100, I think it's 160 odd pages. Let me just check for you. 169 pages. Is it? Or is that? Yes, right to the end. 169 pages. Faber and Faber. Written, I think it was this year, 2024. It does interest me to read Call Me By Your Name, also by Andre Ackerman. And he has a couple of others here. Call Me By Your Name, 8 White Nights, Harvard Square, Enigma Variations, and Find Me. They are his fiction works, and then he has a number of non-fiction, a couple of memoirs and other interesting essays and things. So the basic premise is that a group of college friends from America visit Italy, and they find this gentleman in their accommodation who is rather mystical, and one of the girls in the group is quite bitter and twisted and a little bit nasty, and the gentleman from Peru befriends her, and there is a reason why he befriends her. I really did enjoy it. I thought overall it does interest me to read the rest of his works. I think it reminded me when I was very young, I had a very good friend, my best friend actually, and he subsequently passed away in his 20s. But when we were very young, we were very, very close, brother and sister, basically. And I remember one day, I'll just take these off. I remember one day I must have been 10 and he 11, and we were just on an outing with my parents actually. We were in the back of the car, and he said to me, "What do you think if I said to you, if we here now, and then as we're driving along, where we've just been no longer exists, and that actually you're only existing in the time and the location that you're at, consciously." And I found that a really interesting and out there idea for us as 10 and 11-year-olds. And it has always stayed with me throughout my life. I have, every now and then I think, yes, what if he was right? What if does that happen? Can that happen? So that idea of sliding doors or a reincarnation it's not new to me, and it doesn't disturb me in any way, because I found that from an 11-year-old boy, even at that time, a very interesting concept. And I never did get the opportunity to ask him where or how, or I certainly don't remember if I did, how he came up with that idea. But it has always stayed with me. So yes, this book reminded me of that when I was younger, and also of sliding doors and the Buddhist idea of reincarnation. So I recommend it. I think it's lovely, and it was a quick read. Not that you have to make it quick, but you know, it's not droll. It doesn't drag on, but it's beautiful. And Andre really, I was there in Italy. I was there at the accommodation, and I was there watching this gentleman from Peru in the corner of the room. I really enjoyed it. But I did want to give you that warning. that I just hiccuped. I apologise. It's put me off. I hiccuped. I just did want to give you that warning that there were just a couple of pages where I thought, oh, was that necessary? But overall, I absolutely loved it, and it will be. It may even be a book that I read again in a couple of years. So it will be a book to keep. The next one is an oldie, very old, but a goodie. Now this is from the Folio Society. I'm going to have to put these back on, I'm sorry. This is Elizabeth Gaskell's Cranford. This is from the Folio Society, I think in the 80s, 1980s. Ah, yes, I was right. Not a bad memory. 1987 from London in the Folio Society. Now, Elizabeth Gaskell, as you all know, was she was a writer in the mid-1800s. She began Cranford as an 8-part, the first 2 chapters as an 8-part series in, no less, Charles Dickens he edited and compiled a magazine where quite a few of the more well-renowned writers subscribed to and contributed to. Elizabeth Gaskell was one of them, and her first 2 chapters of Cranford, which at the time she considered to be all that she wanted to write on Cranford, they appeared in an 8-part series in this magazine, and I think it was called Household Weekly or Household. Actually, I wonder if the introduction might. Bear with me. There it is. Household Words. It was originally published. Oh, there you go. As an 8-part serial in Household Words, which and this is actually, although it was republished in 1987, it was from the 1864 edition, because after the 8-part series, Elizabeth Gaskell then decided to continue writing and subsequently wrote the rest of Cranford. Now, Cranford is meant to be a mini autobiography, a mini memoir. It is based on loosely based on Elizabeth Gaskell's experience as a young girl in a village. Elizabeth Gaskell lost her mother very young. She was very young when her mother died, and she was sent off to live with an aunt. And the village where she was living with her aunt then became Cranford. And the people within it are based on the people that Elizabeth Gaskell was living with and around in the village. Now this is, look, it is so funny. I certainly did. Every time I read Cranford, I laugh out loud. There are some very witty, the whole thing is witty actually, the characters, the things that happen in Cranford. And when you first read it, it just seems like a novel that is charming and just about society and, ladies in society, and isn't that nice, and all very domesticated. But when you read it, or certainly for me, when I've read it a few times now, it's much more than that, because it showcases village life in the early to mid 1800s, where women were predominant, where they really, or in some cases, they had their own finances and they were quite successful. Sometimes they weren't, as in one of the characters in here. She is financially ruined, but it's predominantly women. There are men featured in it, and I'd be taking a guess to suggest that perhaps Elizabeth Gaskell also thought that women were more important in society than what they were given credit for at that time. Men do feature in the novel, but they're there when the women socially cannot or should not be doing things that really should, tasks and things that the men should be in control of. I hope that makes sense. But it's really funny. It's really funny. I laugh all the time at the characters. For instance, one of the ladies, her cat eats a precious piece of lace that was purchased for a bonnet. And they have to wait until the cat goes to the toilet to retrieve the lace, and it has to be boiled and cleaned up so that they can retrieve it, because of course things like that were very expensive in those days. So yeah, it's funny. The way that is portrayed it's not just funny, it's hilarious. I recommend it. I really do recommend. It's not just about society at that time. It is, but it's not just about that. It's about women and how also in a village, when something goes wrong, everyone pulls together to make that work. It's also written with the idea or the situation in mind of the cusp of the Industrial Revolution, and that plays a part in here too, and how that another storyline is really how the old school is being taken over by the new generation, and the changes that has happened since, for millennia, out with the old, in with the new type thing. Or certainly that with the new generation, there are new ideas and fresh ideas and things like that. Not always good, but they're new ideas. So I recommend, this one is illustrated, I beg your pardon, it has wood engravings by Joan Hassel. And I'll show you those. That's the first one. That's Elizabeth Gaskell, actually. But I think that's Elizabeth Gaskell, or that might be Mary Martin, who is the Mary Smith, I beg your pardon, who is the narrator in this. And I'm guessing that Mary Smith is perhaps, as the narrator, she's really Elizabeth Gaskell. I think that's a pretty good guess on that. But yeah, there's a whole heap in this edition, there are a whole heap of the wood engravings. So as you're reading, it's lovely to see those. I think novels now are definitely missing that, where we don't have illustrations anymore, which I think brings to life the book a little bit more. Anyway, so that's Elizabeth Gaskell's. Now this, as I say, I think this whole edition was published in 1864, but it did feature before that in the 1850s in Charles Dickens' weekly magazine. Another one I recommend if you haven't seen it already, and I know that there was a television production through the BBC. If you don't want to read it, but I think it's really portrays Cranford very well, and the people. And I think the actors were very well cast in that, because they portray the characters in the book very, very well. It's delightful. You will like it. And there, as I say, it's not just delightful, but it has these, I guess, like Jane Austen and Charles Dickens before, and as contemporaries, she brings to mind, the peculiarities at that time in village life, and the social norms and the expectations and things. I really enjoyed it. I recommend Elizabeth Gaskell's work. Now, another one. Australian Susan Southam, The Cottage Under the Big Pines. Now, this was published some time ago, because I've had it for quite a few years. This is by Murdoch Books, and I'm just going to get Oh, it's not telling me. Oh. That's odd. I think it was like the 1990s, 1991 or 1995, something like that. If I'm wrong, I'll let you know. But it's not. It doesn't have it here, which is really odd. Let me just check. My fingers are not allowing the pages to move there. But anyway, regardless, it looks like a coffee table book, but it's a little bit of both. It's a memoir and a coffee table book. Susan Southam, as a 10 or 11-year-old, fell in love with a property in New South Wales, I think in the Southern Highlands. I think it was the Southern Highlands. She may say in the very beginning. I'm being a little slow today, even though I wanted to be quick, but I do want to get this information out to you properly. Southeastern New South Wales. Southeastern New South Wales. So she fell in love with the cottage, and she was determined that one day she would own, or at least that this cottage would come into her life somehow. And when she was 21, it did. She bought it. I mean, that's just extraordinary, really. And it does happen, I know, but I just think that's extraordinary. To fall in love with a house when you're 10 or 11, and when you're 21, there you are, you've purchased it. Now, she lived in it for 40 years, and this is a book about those years. Her renovations, falling in love with her husband, having children there, and loving it, just loving it. Now, the property, she named it Foxglove Spires, for obvious reasons. A lot of foxgloves feature in the, I hope you can see those, in the photos. But it really is, like, as I say, it's a bit of a coffee table book, but it has the story of Susan's life in here, or of life in the cottage. And it's a book of gratitude as well. She has throughout the book some little sayings. I'll try and find some for you. I'll just show you the photos as well whilst if you can see all of those. I mean, it's just exquisite, it really is. So here's one. I pay homage to the strength of character in stone walls and grandparents. I'm grateful for longevity. So it's little things like that. If you need a boost, if you're just snuggling up by the fire and you need something really feel good to read, this is it. Because you don't even have to read. You can just look at the beautiful photos of the cottage and the garden surrounding it. Now, sad to say, Suzanne did, after the 40 years, and I think it was in the mid to late 90s, she sold the property. I was heartbroken when I found that out, and she does say that in a diary entry here, that it's time to move on. And it's under "With All My Love," under the little chapter there. It's just a stunning, stunning property. Not very big. I don't think it's many acres. It's not as though it's some grand estate or anything, and it's just a little cottage, but my goodness, it's a beautiful story. So Australian, Susan Southam, The Cottage Under the Big Pines, Memories and Details from Foxglove Spires. So I recommend it. Absolutely, it's beautiful. If you can purchase it, like I say, it is a beautiful book. Even if you don't want to read it from cover to cover, you can actually read just a chapter at a time, because in themselves they present a beautiful story and a beautiful coffee table book as well, to boot. So they're the three today: Australian cottage, Australian story, Australian author, and a treasured piece, Elizabeth Gaskell's Cranford. I don't know if I showed you the whole of that. Actually, the cover, that's they're all hardbacks today, all hard covers, and not super duper end papers. Beautiful papers though, and it is quite a lengthy book. Now, I didn't tell you this one, did I? It is quite lengthy because the print is rather small and it is packed on the page. So 201 pages, but the the type is quite small and there's a lot on it. So that was that one. And did I tell you about Cottage Under the Big Pines? I don't think I did. It has, actually this one has lovely M papers too. Oh, we have things at the back. Hang on, I'll be able to tell you. Yay! I don't have to. Now it's Murdoch Books Australia and it was published in 2015. So 2015. So I was wrong. I was how many years out of date? 20. Sorry about that. But yes, definitely in fact, I think once I tried to Google where Susan subsequently ended up, and I might do that again because I'm not sure that I was successful. And if I find out, I'll let you know. But so that is Susan, Australian, Elizabeth Gaskell, absolutely fantastic, hilarious, not just witty, it's hilarious. I love it. And if you ever get the chance to watch the series, it was a very good adaptation. And Andre Ackerman, the gentleman from Peru, I loved it. I really did. As I say, there were just a couple of pages where I thought, not quite in, it didn't quite fit in the story. It did. If you ever read it, let me know what you think. But there was just a couple of things where I thought, oh, that's a bit grotty. I'm not sure about that. But overall, absolutely beautiful. I loved it, and I will be reading more of his. Okay, I've taken up enough of your time today. I hope you're well, and again, I hope you had a lovely weekend. I hope you have a lovely week. I will see you on Saturday for the travel video. I have been rather excited about the future, what is to come. I have had a few ideas and I have been doing a lot of research on where to take you and why I'm taking you. So I do hope you enjoy the coming weeks and months. A lot of planning's gone into it, and I just hope that you find it interesting, and not just about Australia, but there are events that we are going to that I hope you find interesting as well, and enjoyable and relaxing. I hope, but do let me know. I really enjoy your comments. I'm really enjoying this community. You're all really great people, and that your comments are all positive. You're just lovely. So thank you. I have to thank you for that. You make it so much more enjoyable. Anyway, I shall go, and I will see you next week without Arthur. Arthur is not featuring in next week's video on Saturday. Oh, so it's this week's video. Sorry, I beg your pardon, next week. This is today's Monday, so on Saturday he's not featured, but he will be featuring in the weeks to come. Anyway, have a wonderful week. If I don't see you Saturday, I'll see you next Monday. And happy reading, good eating. Actually, that reminds me, in a video, perhaps the next video, I'll try and feature a cookbook so that we can just look at some good foods and good ingredients and wonderful recipes. Anyway, whether that's next week or the week after, at some point we'll go through a couple of the cookbooks that I really do like and really do appreciate. Okay, until then, have a wonderful week whenever I see you next, and enjoy, stay safe, and I'll see you whenever that may be. Okay, take care. Bye for now.